may have a few other people filtering in, but as we already have a fair amount, let's do this thing. So hi everyone, my name is Emily Gilbert. I am the current Vice President, President-elect of IACRL and the chair of the Conference and Continuing Education Committee. And I'd like to welcome you all to Spark Trial by Fire. We're very excited that we could do another one of these events after the one that we had in the spring. I really hate the platitudes about how like it's even more special that we can do this online, because it's really not. I would really like to see all of you in person. I remember I was really sad, and after the first one that went when it was canceled and moved online, still worked out great, but it's really special to be able to see people in person, especially people that I don't see regularly, because even pre-COVID I was working entirely in this home office. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that like this isn't the best way that we would like to be able to meet with all of you and hear from you, but I'm still grateful that we're able to meet in any way. And I am really so appreciative of everyone who worked to put this event together. Dan, if you could go to the next slide. So I have to give immense thanks to everyone who's on the IACRL Conference and Continuing Education Committee. I just stepped in as chair like less than 2 months ago, so a lot of the work that was done toward this had already been done by the time I came here. So especially a big thanks to Sue Franzen, our current IACRL president and former vice president and former chair, who was chair of this committee before me. So thank you so much to everyone who helped with this. And on top of that, also Cindy Robinson from ILA. She's been incredible, as well as Dan Bostrom, who is going to, Dan Bostrom from Rails, who's going to kind of facilitate our program moving forward. So we have a great group of presenters from libraries all over Illinois that we are very excited to hear from. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Emily. And let me just say thank you again to everyone. My name is Dan Bostrom. I'm the Member Engagement Manager from Rails. And I want to echo what Emily said. It's disappointing that we aren't able to get together in person. But I just want to acknowledge that I think IACRL has adapted better than I think a lot of other groups, and has really taken to this format. And I think a lot of that is attributable to some great leaders. And I want to just acknowledge Emily, your role as president-elect. You've done a great job. Sue Franzen, who current ICL president. Hi, Sue. And then also past president Michelle Nielsen-Ott. When we started planning for the first Spark event back in May, I had so much confidence that it was going to go well because of how much planning and talking that went into it, and then the pandemic hit, but we adapted really well, and we were able to kind of turn something into a lot of fun. So thank you all. Okay, so I just want to kind of give a quick overview about what we're going to be doing today. So we have 8 presenters today, and we're going to do 4 in the first hour. And then we'll do 15 minutes of breakouts. And then we're going to do 4 more presentations in the second half. And then again, we'll do some breakouts. So after that, we'll kind of come back. I'll bring us back. We'll do some conclusion and wrap up. And then we'll have you out of here by noon today. Okay, so one of the things I just want to sort of lay out here is a little bit on how the breakouts are going to work. It's a little bit different. We formatted these slightly differently. So during the 2 breakout periods, there will be a separate room for each of the 4 preceding lightning sessions. And you will be able to ask questions of the presenter during this time. So we'll also kind of discuss the topic that the presenter has brought up. And the sessions are going to be numbered 1 through 8. So you will know which breakout room you wish to attend, and we'll update your name in Zoom. You can update your name in Zoom with the number in front. So for example, if I wanted to go into room number 2, like Emily's name has a 2 in front of it, I would change my name to 2 Dan Bostrom. So on this slide, you can see a little bit of the example that Emily provided for you in the email. If you hover over your name in the participation list and click more, that will open up a drop down, and then you just select rename, and then make sure again that your number is in front. You're going to do this twice, so one for the first set of presentations, and then one for the second set of presentations at the end. And if you have any trouble, just drop us a note in the chat. We'll give you some assistance. So first, the first half, we're going to hear from 4 presenters, and I'm very excited for all of them. So let's kick us off. The first one is Carrie Garman, and she is the Access Services / Education Librarian at the Cullum Davis Library at Bradley University. And Carrie's presentation is entitled "Turning on Less Than a Dime, Delivering a Contact Tracing Seating System with Almost No Budget." And the description says, in late 2020, late July 2020, staff learned that we were expected to reopen the Bradley University Library in less than a month with contact tracing seating system in place, but almost no budget to construct it. With a little inspiration and some cross-university collaboration, we delivered our system on time at minimal cost and have used it ever since with only minor modifications. So Carrie, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you are welcome to start sharing yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. Okay. All right, so yes, indeed. Our trial by fire during this pandemic, well, one of them is to come up with a contact tracing system with almost no budget in essentially less than a month. So we were originally given a mandate from our provost on July 29th, saying that basically once we reopened August 26th, every single seat in our library that was patron facing, so that a student could use, had to have the capability to do contact tracing. So he thought reservations were the best way to do this, so that was a compulsory element. However, he did say we had no budget to do it. We were pretty stressed. We had seen commercial systems that would maybe account for this. But the first thing that happened was I got my team together and I said, how can we do this? Especially for the long hours that we would need to do it. So we were open like from 9 a.m. to midnight, essentially 4 days a week, and some hours the other days of the week too. So in our original concept, we knew we were going to have to mark the chairs. Every chair was going to need a unique identifier. We thought it would be easiest for the students if we came up with a system that started with the floor. So we had 2 floors available for them out of our 4 normal floors. So our system starts with a 1 or a 2. It has a color to mark their quadrant, as well as a directional, and then every single seat was numbered. So we came up with this in less than a week, this idea. We knew we'd have 255 chairs to mark. The most brilliant stroke, I think, was determining that we could use an Excel spreadsheet for this if we wanted to. We would make a master spreadsheet that contained every single chair and every single hour that we were open. We tested our barcode scanner. We were all called back to work behind the scenes as of August 3rd. So the first thing we did was test our barcode scanner and realized we could scan directly into cells if we needed to. And then we knew we would need something to signify to the students, hey, this is your seat, and something that would be an immediate visual identifier that the student who was in that seat belonged in that seat. So something that they could set on the table in front of them. So we had the ideas of the tokens, the spreadsheet, and the marking of the chairs. And that was very much team-based. So in terms of supplies and cost, we knew we would be using staff time, but the good and bad of that is we knew we would be back August 3rd, essentially our 37.5 hours per day, so full time to work on this. We knew we'd need copy paper in 4 colors. We had that. We knew we had the tape that we needed to do this. The only thing we would have to purchase were the plastic tokens. So we looked for, we thought, inexpensive, easily wipeable, readily available things. And through Amazon, we were able to find like 4 color plastic rulers. we could get them for about 30 to 45 cents each, and we didn't think we could do better than that. So luckily, we had all the pieces of our system then ready to present to the director and the provost. You can see that we did go ahead and make a library floor map. This is essentially the finished map for at least the start of the semester. It shows you our quadrants. It shows you where every single seat is located. We have this still so that students can locate their seat up at the front. And that you can see the names of my team members who specifically put that together beneath the picture. This is what our chair mapping and signage initially look like. So you can see it's first floor, northwest quadrant, and it's the 11th seat. And we also wanted to make sure that this was very clear just in case we have patrons who are colorblind, so that they would still have a way to locate that seat. This is just a sample of our master spreadsheet. So this is what we thought it would go ahead and that it was going to look like. So, however, when it came down to the nitty gritty, so when we presented it to the director and the provost, they loved some parts, didn't love others as much. So they liked the mapping and seat signage as proposed. So we went ahead and marked those seats. The library director did not like the rulers. She wanted some different tokens. It did boost the price. They are very nice looking. I will show you a photo of them later, but it increased the price from about $118 to $477. So if you're backed into a real budget corner, the rulers will do it, but you can see what the Demco looks like later on. The director had real concerns about the idea of customizing tokens to seats. So she was worried that we would have people congregating up at the front to pick up their tokens. That hasn't been too much with the numbers that we've had and the fact that we don't customize. Like, her concept seems to be working, let's put it that way. You'll see kind of how that pans out when you look at it later. The best part that we got out of this whole thing is she proposed a major upgrade, and I really suggest you look into this on your campus if you're given a similar mandate. So she reached out and collaborated with the associate registrar to see if we could somehow work with one of their existing systems, a room booking system that they use for all the classes on campus, to see if we could have a subset of that for our rooms. I had seen commercial systems that were in the double digits of thousands of dollars, if not, and a few, I suppose, in the singles. For 255 seats, it would have been very pricey. This was a way we could do it in-house for essentially the cost of staff time. And the associate registrar was open to this. The design time to get us up and running was 2 weeks. And our reservation portal, so the place where the students go and click through, is the library website. So that, from our point of view, could not have gone better. I wanted to give you a couple of screenshots so you can see what we ended up with to compare it to any commercial system you may be considering. So you can see it says room request. For us, it's actually seat request. So the library seat reservation piece shows you you're actually in the seat reservation. Something I couldn't get all on one screen is that literally beneath where it says locations, add, remove, Column Davis Library is a list of every seat for reservation in the building. This shows you the user details that we collect. In our own initial proposal, we loved the idea that we would only be collecting student barcodes to keep like an extra layer of confidentiality for any student who later might test positive and we might have to trace. We wouldn't necessarily be seeing names. We could just use the find function to find their barcode. However, this system collects a lot more, so we can reach out to them pretty quickly. So a few things, the advantages. This really places everything in the hands of the students, which is ideal from our point of view. They can make the reservations, they can cancel them, they get automatic reminders. Admins can easily change our hours if our hours change. That was helpful when we underwent a quarantine, but remained open with shorter hours. Reservations were initially set for 1 booking per day, 5 days per week. That's where we kind of come up against one of the disadvantages. It's really not a disadvantage of the electronic reservation system, but the idea of reservations per se. Our students don't like the idea of those reservations. However, we do find that they handle it better when we give them, kind of a consistent amount of time and we communicate it consistently. So I wanted you to see those were the markers that the director chose. You can see our workflow is pretty straightforward. We ask them to prove they've made a reservation or make one on the spot. They grab a token for whichever floor, and then they return it. We did go from 2-person tables. We were mandated to have some, but after our campus-wide quarantine, all seating became single seating, which I do think is safer. And we went to locking our study rooms and checking out separate keys for those. So what are the outcomes? We met our deadline. I'm very proud of that, actually. We did a great job, I think. And the cost was only the cost of those Demco shelf markers is what they initially were designed for. We did do this fantastic collab that saved us double digits of thousands of dollars to get that electronic system, and we get to keep it. And one nice thing is, because we have the map, we can also identify if a student moves a chair, even though they've been asked not to, we can tell from where it is most likely who they sat next to. So the contact tracing is intact. However, our university did decide to pursue a less aggressive contact tracing system. So I don't know for sure if they went to the lengths of notifying students when they were sitting, in a space surrounded by people. If they contacted those other students who were close by. However, they certainly could have done so. Communication is key with this system, and it also helps to have staff to do some enforcement. Our staff is a little limited for enforcement, so students quickly learned they could stay in low demand seating for longer than we would wish. And we would love in access services and admin login. Currently, that's limited to the library director and the soon to be, the interim director. So if you have further questions, I welcome them. Please feel free to find me at the breakout session or to email me or reach out to me at BU. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. That's great. Remember, if you want to participate in Carrie's breakout section, you can just put a 1 in front of your name in the participants list. And okay, so our next presenter, and I will just share my screen very briefly. Our next presenter is Michelle Rubel, and Michelle is the associate professor at Joliet Junior College. And her topic, her presentation title is Going Virtual for EDI. And she writes, in my role on the President's Diversity and Inclusion Council, I have been organizing census and voting educational initiatives since 2019. Learn how these projects were migrated online due to the pandemic. Okay, Michelle, I'm stopping sharing my screen and you can go ahead. And just to note that you're muted right now, Michelle, just in case you.
Morning, everyone. Well, like so many of us, we at Joliet Junior College had to quickly shift gears over basically spring break in March on so many of the different initiatives that we had been working on. And I had been particularly working on voting information initiatives prior to the 2020 election, and was very heavily involved with the census. I sat on our local Complete Count Commission and headed up a number of initiatives at the college. We had our first big program in 2019, actually, where representatives from the Census Bureau and the state of Illinois and others came. And then thankfully, we got in our second big event on March 4th, just prior to spring break, and then finding out we weren't coming back after spring break. So what to do with all of these projects? Well, we decided on continuing our partnerships, moving what we could online through Zoom programming, internally we use MS Teams for our programming, and then promotion through our social media channels. And then finally, we decided to use our LibGuides, not only for the course-specific instruction and subject-specific, but we also kind of now are treating them as an online display, if you will, to create fresh new content and also highlight things that are happening immediately. Our internal partners included the Department of Adult Education and Literacy. We were really working closely with them on census initiatives, but also voting. Those are a lot of students that are new immigrants and have language skills that aren't English as their second language. So it was important for us to reach out to them. The other groups included OSA, and then the student dean of students, and my work on our DEI council. External, I mentioned Joliet Complete Count Commission. We're also very involved with the Spanish Community Center, which headed up the We Count Todos Contamos program to reach out on census issues. And then I was very involved with our representatives from the Census Bureau in getting all of this organized. So beyond strictly voting and census, I also took on some Black Lives Matter promotional and informational campaigns. So I created a LibGuide for that. Yeah, out of everything that the college has done, our LibGuide was the very first thing that was up and running. Ultimately, the DEI Council had a statement and some additional initiatives. And you can see that I tried to partner it also with things like Black Census Day to create some synergy between our census work and also Black Lives Matter. So this was an event, an online event via Instagram Live. We also tried to make sure that we were focusing on our collections as we did these promotional pieces. And so this particular book, we also promoted some of the different libraries that were having Dr. Kendi speak. And most recently, he spoke at Radcliffe, which you could watch online. And that was a really great program because it involved the students there asking questions. And you can see then ultimately, towards the end of June, our Diversity Council came up with a kind of a statement, and we've used this to then further brand our BLM initiatives. Regarding the census, I really made a point of explaining why the census is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we rolled out a lot of different things, including a full-blown LibGuide, and then tried to remind students and tie it to things like the extension on taxes, and also when the census was cut short by the Supreme Court in the middle of October, we made sure to promote that. One of the things that locally we were involved with was a census caravan. This was actually canceled initially because Joliet had gone into a lockdown early on in the pandemic. And so we rescheduled it and were able to get our congressmen involved and Will County board members. And this was all done socially distanced in cars, and we had magnetic signage that were placed on the cars. Again, I tied voting rights into equity, diversity, and inclusion, and focused on things like voter suppression. to allow students to understand the history of voting rights and why their vote was so important. And also we highlighted different events over the course of the fall, like Request Your Ballot Week. In my partnership with OSA, which is our student activities, we did an entire week of online programming called Rock the Vote Week. I personally did 2 of the programs, a film chat and a book chat. And we also recruited other professors to do talks on voter suppression and a number of other topics. Our Rock the Vote Week, in my collection development for the film discussion, we added some films we use Swank as one of our streaming film sources. And so I added things like Slay the Dragon and a few other ones. And the same thing for our book discussion. We added a few more copies of some of the books that I'd been promoting on our LibGuide. This book discussion, nothing was assigned, no specific book was assigned. People could talk about whatever books they had read on those topics. I wanted to just point out a few other initiatives, everything from Asian Pacific Heritage Month to Banned Books Week to LGBTQ+ month. We created LibGuides and programming to support these monthly events or weekly events. So our Take 5 guides, which is basically 5 categories with 5 examples in each. So it could be websites or podcasts or streaming video or databases, something to just give people an introduction. And I mentioned here the ones that were specifically kind of EDI related, but we've also done things on baseball and just crafting and how to de-stress and relaxation techniques and new student tips. And then I did full-blown subject guides on BLM, census, and voter information. And those are much more fleshed out. This is an example of the voter ones with all the context for getting election results, et cetera. And here is the separate one that I did as a Take 5 for Rock the Vote Week, which has little sections on ebooks and streaming videos. I just wanted to thank everybody on our team. Amy Chelina, who is not only my office mate, but also my social media partner, does a lot of our Instagram posts and creating things in Canva. I create a lot of stuff in Canva too, but I often borrow her creative items. And also our JJC partners and our community and governmental partners. And if you have any questions about how we did all of this, please join us in section 2. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Very nice. Yes, if you do want to ask Michelle more questions, you can participate in breakout number 2. So put a 2 in front of your name. Okay, our next presenter is April Anderson Zorn, and April is the University Archivist at the Illinois State University. Her topic is Collecting a Pandemic, How the Rayfield Archives Collects Pandemic Stories. And the description is, join University Archivist April Anderson Zorn as she presents the successes and challenges of quickly launching an online file collecting system documenting her institution's response and experiences with the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, April, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and you are welcome to share yours.
Let me unmute myself first. 1 second here. And all right, well, hello everyone. My name is April Anderson Zorn and I am the University Archivist at Illinois State University. So going to just very quickly go through how we responded to collecting a pandemic. That's what else are you gonna call it? We were trying to collect folks' experiences and trials, tribulations during the switch over to a different mode of teaching and how students were reacting to the pandemic. A little quick bit of background. We are called the Rayfield Archives because we're named for my predecessor, Joanne Rayfield. We actually are the university archives, the repository for Illinois State University. So we do collect history for the university. By the time that this started to come about, we were of course working from home by the end of March. And as it turned out, I was also very, very, very pregnant. And I had just moved. I was doing a commute from Champaign to Bloomington on the regular for several years, and then had just bought a house and moved back to Bloomington while being very pregnant. And of course the pandemic hit and we were stuck at home. And so not only was I trying to make it through my pregnancy, but we were running the department, making sure that we were answering student questions. It had come up on midterms by that point, researchers looking for information. So it was actually quite busy, and collecting pandemic stories was not on our radar. We were asked by, actually the way that I found out was I had a few folks call me and say, well, there's some folks on the campus that are collecting their own pandemic stories within their units. And I said, wait, we're the ones that we should be leading this effort. We're the University Archives. So it came about very quickly. I reached out to our IT folks in our parent institution, Milner Library, and I reached out to our director for communication and research, or excuse me, communication and outreach, and asked for some emergency help and did a little fast research on what were other institutions doing at the time. Well, as it turns out, not a lot of other institutions were doing this at that point. They were also very slowly catching up and starting their own collecting initiatives. So I talked to our IT department, Library Information Technology Services. We call them LITS in Milner Library. Big shout out to Paul Unsby, who helped us get this together. I explained the time-sensitive nature of the issue, that we needed to get this launched and really needed to launch it before the end of the semester so that we knew that we were going to have some collecting from students as they were getting ready for graduation and doing virtual graduation. We, on the archive side, needed a few basics. We needed to be able to have donors submit files. Regardless, we had a lot of GIS requests, a lot of photograph requests, document requests, be able to collect basic metadata. So name, dates, that person's preferred name, would they like their information, their identifying information used in a future exhibit, et cetera, et cetera. We also needed a way for those donors to submit text rather than just a file if they were in fact keeping diaries. And what we really needed at the end is we needed a way for the donor to confirm that they knew what they were submitting, that they were donating these materials. LITS came back and gave us two options. It was either something, and they're both proprietary and both something that our university has subscriptions to, Qualtrics and FormStack. And after some discussion and the needs that we have, we went with a system called Qualtrics, which is really just a big survey type of system, survey collection system. So as with all technology, there were hiccups. Shocker, I know. So with Qualtrics, we had a 100 megabyte upload limit. Actually, FormStack had a smaller, I believe, I don't have those switched. Qualtrics had the smaller, Qualtrics had the larger upload limit of 100 megabytes total. That didn't mean that they couldn't submit multiple times. It means in one submission, they can only submit up to 100 megabytes. We also were really running into this idea of a signature. We needed to have a signature, at least we thought we needed to have a signature similar to a deed of gift. So for those of you who are not in archives land, we do deeds of gift when you donate materials to a repository. And you basically sign a document that says that you are donating those materials back to the repository and you're transferring ownership to the repository, the physical ownership. When we started to look into this, we were bumping into an Illinois law called the Electronic Commerce Security Act. And in a nutshell, what you have to do to be compliant with that law is be able to connect that digital signature to the physical person, which is actually really hard to do with the current software that we had. So we brought in legal counsel, our university's general counsel, and they said, well, you don't need a contract, do an acknowledgement. It's not great, but it is what it is for the time that we are living in. Essentially, when a donor acknowledges that they're donating material, they acknowledge, and I put a little bit of the description there at the bottom of the screen, that they are copying, displaying, performing, distributing, publishing, migrating, allowing us to do these things to the materials, such as we would if they were donating materials. So instead of signing over and understanding, they are checking a box and acknowledging that they are doing this. So very quickly, I'll click out and let you see. This is the first page that you get to, and I'll just click over. Some very basic first name, last name, preferred name, et cetera, the very basic metadata. And if I were to click next, it would hold me up and ask me to put more information in, so I won't do that. But this is the very basic way. And you can do this from your mobile phone. You can do this from a tablet. You can do this from a home computer. Wherever you have your files, you can do this. So as it turns out, my child decided she wanted to be here a month early. So I did not get to promote this when this was finally launched around the time of graduation. It was a great pandemic, folks. So we did not get to do as much publication of this or publicizing of this as we would like to have done at the beginning. We did get a little bit out. And then when I returned from maternity leave, we were able to do a little bit more publicizing. We did make it into the Society of American Archivists in the Loop news cycle and did make some regional news cycles to say, hey, we are collecting this material. Now, quick side note, how are others doing this? There are in-house forms that some institutions have taken. They have people creating forms for them in-house to do this work. I have seen Google Forms in play. University of Wisconsin-Madison has done this. There are some institutions who are simply saying, just email us your files. Send us the information, email us the files, we'll go from there. And then there are a couple who will remain nameless who have said, please snail mail us the flash drive and or whatever it is that you can send a flash drive and physical materials and we'll take care of this. All of these have their own unique donation and really acknowledgement and signature issues, which I'm happy to talk about at a breakout session. But take this into consideration if you're planning to do this at your institution. So to quickly wrap up, the future of online collecting, I consider this our 1.0. We are going to evolve. This is going to continue far past the pandemic to allow donors to donate online. We need to address the acknowledgement versus a deed of gift. So how do we translate that deed of gift back into a proper deed of gift online? We need to work with that. Obviously, upload limits. What can a person upload and what can we take at one time? Institutional storage capacity and stewardship. You are collecting these materials. What happens when you retire? What happens when you leave? Will there be someone or an entity on the campus to take care of this? And will the institution be able to give you the storage capacity to continue this long term? Another thing to think about. And then of course, as always, cost. Is it cheaper for you to do proprietary versus homegrown? Maybe it might be cheaper for you to spend money on a yearly licensing fee for proprietary versus you having to pay someone to update a homegrown system. So just things to think about. And there's my contact information, and I'm happy to chat with y'all after this and during the breakout session.
Thank you, April. And reminder, April was our third presenter. If you want to participate in her breakout session, you will put a number 3 in front of your name in the list of participants. Okay, so our next presenter is Kelly Fisher, and Kelly is the Public and Access Services Librarian for the Melick Library at Eureka College. And Kelly's presentation title is Library Staff's Support of Faculty During Their Pivot to Online Instruction at Eureka College. And the description says, in March of 2020, Eureka College faculty were forced to pivot their in-person instruction to online only for the first time in the college's history. Learn about how the library staff played a significant role in the faculty's successful transition to online teaching, as evidenced in a librarian-administered post-semester online teaching transition survey. Okay, so Kelly, I am stopping sharing my screen, and you are welcome to share yours.
All right, here we go. All right, well, as was mentioned by Dan, I am the Public and Access Services Librarian here at Melick. I've been here since 2004. It's been a long and interesting journey. So I'll be concentrating mostly on my role, one of the many roles that we have here at Eureka College and how I supported the faculty. So if you don't know Eureka College, we're a very small private liberal arts college in central Illinois between Peoria and Bloomington. And we were associated with the Disciples of Christ Church and founded by members of that church in 1855 as the first college in the state and third in the nation to men and women on equal basis. That's pretty cool there, I thought. We're also the alma mater of former President Ronald Reagan. So library staff have many hats in small liberal arts colleges. Right now, we only have 2 staff members, myself as a librarian and our technical services coordinator. And I teach all information literacy sessions and do all interlibrary loan and circulation oversight. I supervise the student workers and serve as a reference librarian. And also since 2011, I've served as a campus learning management system administrator and trainer. And we work first with Moodle and then with Brightspace by D2L. And the technical services coordinator does all the other stuff. She does ordering, processing, cataloging, invoice processing, maintaining holdings. And with the Carly consortial shift this past year, she also became our site administrator for our Alma library management system and was doing all that conversion during the shutdown. And then she's also the co-site administrator with myself with our Open Athens authentication system, which we should have up and running with our databases in January. So the initial COVID shutdown notification came out on campus and during our spring break, which was then extended another week so that faculty could transfer materials to their online environments. During this time, the library staff was securing online database trials and activating ones that were offered through the consortium. And so our technical services coordinator took a lead on some of that and also was doing our promotion and marketing of such resources. And then I was doing the updating of our LibGuide. That's basically our databases page that everyone goes to find our resources and linking those. And also I obtained some key trials for the theater department because we had no streaming video service prior to March. And we then got Avon from ProQuest as well as a couple of different streaming theater collections within that really helped our theater department who was kind of at a loss on how to transfer physical acting to an online environment. So I also took an instructional designer's role, which we don't have a center for teaching and learning on our campus. So that kind of assumed a little bit of that role as my position in the learning management system role. So I first thought how could I most help the fastest? And I created an online document, which had basically all the resources people would probably need to try to start thinking of transferring in person to online. Including different strategies that I've researched and teaching in an online environment, different resources and best practices I found. Really key was putting descriptions of all the LMS and Zoom tools that are available and their communication. So I was teaching people about synchronous versus asynchronous communication and how best to do that in their context of their course, because some courses were more lecture-based and some were more discussion-based, so which would work best for their situation. I'm also linked to made it a Google Doc because of the peer-to-peer sharing capability. So we did have one of our junior faculty members actively sharing information that he's used because he was one of our more experienced online instructors previously to coming to Yorkie College. We have a learning management system course, which is instructor video training that I updated, including Zoom information in there. And we didn't have any Zoom before March 2020 as well. So everything was pretty new with that technology. And I'd estimate about 80% of my time in work from home in late March to May was supporting these teachers in their effort to use the new tools, to transfer their courses, to be a sounding board for ideas, what they could do with their tests, because that was a big issue, was testing for them. I could count and I had over 150 interactions, mostly via email, and my responses included picture-based, step-by-step instructions for visual learners there. Also, I did Zoom meetings and I had to learn how to use Zoom and then teach how to use Zoom right away for people as a host, also phone calls. And the different faculty I worked with, I had one interaction with some, and then there was one person I worked with 38 different times because they were very old school, let's say, and I had some troubles. So the pivot I turned into an assessment opportunity. I was in the Carly Counts grant program this past year, and I had to pivot. My topic was going to be, and the Carly Counts is really focused on teaching staff how to use data to measure the impact of libraries on student success. And so I thought this was a great opportunity to measure how the libraries impacted success via the faculty in this role. And then, also the students, because if the faculty aren't successful, then the students, are also not going to be successful. So I created this survey to assess the faculty's transition to online teaching. I wanted to capture a holistic view and feelings and experiences, sort of kind of like the archival project. I wanted to get some of their own words, what they were feeling, how they were transitioning here, and also wanted to evaluate the support received from the campus departments, including IT and the library. And the survey was reviewed and approved by the provost in early April and by the college IRB chair in later April. Provost thought it was great assessment data and evidence for HLC accreditation, also presented my final summary to the Board of Trustees in late June. Some of the interesting things about the survey, the response rate was fairly well, 31 responses, about 58% of all instructors, including our adjuncts, and 78% of all full-time faculty responded. And I found out what I thought was only 10% of respondents had ever taught in an online-only environment. Eureka College had never offered online course before March 20, but now it's something that we can do, and hopefully we can grow that program because it things allow lots of flexibility for enrollment. When asked what resource is most helpful to them during the transition, the majority responded that it was a resource I provided. The one-on-one assistance with me was deemed the second most helpful, second to peer-to-peer assistance from their colleagues. And all the comments about the quality or level of support instructors received from the library were positive. 3 mentioned how helpful I was with especially the bright space issues, and 1 mentioned the technical service coordinator, and 5 mentioned us doing good, great, excellent job overall. So as of mid-August, students have been back on campus. We were actually open this fall. Library was closed until early August, like a couple weeks before school started back up, and I was working from home until then. Teachers were in class with owls, which means that they could have like a big webcam in the middle of the room that students could join via Zoom as well as in person and see a 360 and kind of feel more involved in the class. I taught with Zoom for the first time for information literacy and orientations, and I had a few small classes in the computer lab still with all the masks on and everything. We were open, but with limited hours, so we were open only till 7 o'clock most nights, and we closed weekends when we usually weren't. We were quarantining books and hand sanitizing, masks everywhere, and it was kind of interesting that students were put in quarantine at different times, so I had to be flexible with my scheduling there. Which brings us to my lessons learned. The 2 big things I kind of came up with is flexibility is a must when facing a new normal. Using Zoom was new, you just move on and adapt, and now it's a go-to thing, so we're now more comfortable with technology after the time has passed. Working from home is now kind of an option and it wasn't before, and different departments on campus are rotating people in and out who are actually on campus and who's working from home. And then student desk coverage, you had to be a little more flexible, but luckily we didn't have a time when nobody could cover the desk and we had to close early. Also, difficult times could help us rise to the occasion and lead to special recognition. The library tends to get forgotten sometimes, I think. And so we try to use this as an opportunity to prove our value to campus through the contribution during this hard time. I use the survey as evidence as a way to help me in my bid for promotion to the rank of full professor this fall, and hopefully I'll find out if I got that in February. And also I was nominated for the first time for the college's annual Teaching Excellence Award, which I don't even know if the librarian has ever been nominated for that before because there's so few of us anymore at the college. And also of the 3 veteran faculty members who were those who wrote my letter of recommendation, 2 of them I helped over 20 different times throughout the semester. So that's some of those successes that we did have, even though it was like a very trying time. And if you would like to discuss maybe even your own library successes or your different questions for my presentation here, I'd be happy to answer those if you just put a 4 before your name.
Thank you, Kelly. Great job. That was great. Okay, so I am going to share my screen again, and I just want to walk you through how these breakout rooms are going to work one more time. So, and I see that about 1/3 of you have already chosen your breakout rooms. Thank you for doing that. Again, okay, so what we're doing is we are asking all of you to choose a breakout room, and you will do that by putting a number in front of your name in the participants list. So this is just, again, this slide kind of provides you a little bit of a breakdown of how it's going to work. Our sessions are numbered 1 through 4. So when you figure out which one you want, you just go to, you find your name in the list, you click more, and then you click rename, and it will open up once you click more, it'll open up a drop down and you'll click rename, and then just make sure to put that number in there. I'm going to put the list of presenters again, and we also have breakout moderators, and I want to acknowledge these folks. Thank you. The people whose names are in red are our breakout moderators, and they are going to be helping in each of these breakout rooms. So remember, if you want to talk to Carrie, you're going to put a 1. If you want to talk to Michelle, you're going to put a 2. If you want to talk to April, you're going to do a 3. If you want to do Kelly, you're going to do 4, as my cat uses his box right next to me, and you will be put into those breakout rooms. We do have some time here, and we're going to allow you to take a quick break. We want everyone to come back by 10:28. So you do have a little bit of time. Make sure first that you choose your breakout room. Do that first before you take your break, and then at 10:28, we're all going to come back. We're going to go into those breakout rooms, and we'll do 15 minutes in the breakout room, and then at 10:45 we will all come back. Emily, is there anything else you want to provide before we go on?
Hopefully everyone is attending like on a work laptop or something that has all of the regular capabilities, but I was in a Zoom thing once on my Chromebook, my personal Chromebook, which was like, I had to change my name for something, and it didn't even give me that option because, Chromebooks limited functionality. So if anyone is unable to change their name, please give it a shot first and see if you can do it. And if you can't, just let us know in the chat pod and we will get you taken care of.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yep. Everybody, if everybody can do that and then come back by 10:28, we will be great.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And the limits of safety measures and the reality of skyrocketing library usage. What a gripping description that is.
Sounds like a tagline for 2020.
Honestly. Yes, it is. It is.
Your uncertainty.
Yeah. So Russ, I'm going to stop sharing, and you are welcome to share your screen. There you go. And Russ, I think you're on mute right now.
Okay, I'm still muted. Oh, sorry.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, great. I'll get started then. Hi, Russ Iwami and Peggy Carey here from National University of Health Sciences. Along with our director, our technical services librarian and assistant, and our serials manager, we are keeping our library open so far, despite the absence of a circulation manager during this entire pandemic. Oops. Normally, we're open to our alumni and the general public, except during exam times. However, in the interest of safety and contact tracing, we restricted entrance to only our students and employees. We also had to limit our hours. In addition to our 4 professional programs, we also have an undergraduate allied health program, which includes a Bachelor of Science program. The library is a separate building set between our main building and our clinic. As a result, we rely on interdepartmental meetings and other virtual and live communication to stay informed about campus developments. We began a sign-in sheet to measure library usage, but realized that it also should facilitate contact tracing. Everyone entering the library must display their virtual self-certification screening for that day. We provide hand sanitizer and disinfectant spray at our entrance. In addition to the typical pandemic signage, we also found we needed signs to support social distancing. We found that only one person could be at a table and socially distanced. For the same reason, we decided that 2 people would be the most for our group study rooms. This is probably true for almost all academic libraries, but our students need computers for their online learning requirements. Some students just need a quiet place to study and work, perhaps away from their family and other major distractions. But I think this also points out that there is a digital divide even among students in professional programs. Not all students have access to reliable internet and accessories that support the new technological requirements placed upon them. Like many schools, we tried to go as online as possible, but the nature of our programs required that many of their students participate in some in-person training, which was moved to week 10 of a 15-week trimester. With more students on campus, we saw our usage statistics soar. Almost all of the rest of the campus is closed off, so quite a few students come to the library in between gaps in their schedule. And we noticed that our healthy vending machine also is very popular as a result. We couldn't rely on the school to consistently supply us with these products. We were able to participate in a group purchase through the SWAN Consortium. Since we do have a clinic on campus, we have been able to get some masks and gloves from there. Sometimes, for example, our first sneeze guard, we purchased ourselves as we had identified an urgent need and then were reimbursed. At least once a day, our washrooms are sanitized using a Victory electrostatic sprayer. The library receives a deep cleaning once a week on Sundays while we are closed. We monitored other libraries and the discussions during webinars to determine how long we would quarantine our materials after usage. Originally, we used 7 days, but cut it down to 3 days in accordance with the Rails decision. Yeah, truthfully, most of our enforcement is actually through signage. We generally do not patrol except with flagrant infractions. Students must wear masks properly at all times, except when they are actively eating or drinking, which we do permit. We also took on the task of distributing in Chromebooks to students who need them. At first, we signed them out on paper forms, but now we have the equipment in our system and check them out. Yeah, this was planned before the pandemic, but in the midst of all this, the library was remodeled with new furniture. We gave away our old furniture through the Rails giveaways. The work and the pickup were completed while the library was closed after our summer trimester. It's not easy for academic libraries to stay informed and connected, so having these organizations was a great relief. Thanks.
Great, Russ. Thank you so much. And remember, if you want to attend Russ's breakout, you can just put a 5 in front of your name. We are going to be moving into the 5 through 8 presentations here. So so please make sure to remember that. And I'll have a slide up later, which kind of gives you a breakdown of our presenters and the numbers associated with their presentation. So our next presenter is Michelle O, and Michelle is the education librarian at Northeastern Illinois University Libraries. The title of her presentation is OER Workshop and the Impact of Learning from Home. The description says Northeastern University, NEIU Libraries hosted a workshop on open education resources for 19 faculty members in the spring of 2020, shortly after the governor's shelter-in-home mandate. This talk will discuss the workshop process, survey results that indicated that instructors that adopted open textbooks saved NEIU students upwards of $9,329, and the impact the pandemic has had on willingness to adopt the OER. Michelle, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and you are welcome to share yours.
Sorry, can I just cut in real quick? Russ, did we miss the end of, like, were you done, or were we supposed to hear from Peggy as well? I just wanted to make sure we didn't cut you off early. If you are talking, I can't hear you. I just wanted to.
No, I was done. Thank you.
Oh, okay, sure. I just wanted to, I wasn't sure if Peggy was also speaking or something. I just didn't want to make sure we, I wanted everyone who was supposed to speak to get the opportunity to speak. Sorry about that. Okay.
Good clarification. Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, sorry about the interruption. Michelle, take it away.
Oh my gosh, no worries. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if it's okay, I might capitalize on this extra minute from Russ because I tried to cut out some
content. Go ahead.
I got lots to say. All right, so let's go here. Can everybody see? Yeah. All right, so thank you again. My name is Michelle O. I'm the education librarian, as Dan introduced me, at Northeastern Illinois University. And again, my talk is going to discuss a faculty open education resources workshop that we hosted last April after NEIU shifted to online learning. And to start, I just wanted to get a basic definition of open education resources, which I'll sometimes refer to as the acronym OER. And this is a definition from the Hewlett Foundation, and they are high quality teaching, learning, and research materials that are free for people everywhere to use and repurpose. So in other words, they are free and no cost course materials. So that's in opposition to commercially available textbooks. So the librarians at NEIU, like probably many of the librarians that are present today, know students struggle with textbook costs. We knew it through the requests we were getting at the reference desk, at the circulation desk, asking for textbooks through iShare, the popularity of our textbook reserve program, and other interactions with students. And this chart is actually just a little bit of data to support this need. So this was information from a climate survey that the university conducted last spring that started before the pandemic and then continued into it. So for the students who actually reported financial hardships, they listed the things that were the hardest for them. And the second top financial hardship that was reported were books and course materials. So that outpaced even housing or food. So the workshop was really an attempt to address this problem. And the process of developing the workshop began in April 2018. So the former digital scholarship librarian at our institution and I attended a full day training hosted by Carly, the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Illinois. And the trainers were from the Open Textbook Network, which is now called the Open Education Network. And they provided training on the topic as well as a full workshop materials that we were able to adapt into our own local workshop. And one of the big takeaways from the workshop was that despite everyone agreeing that this was a big problem, students couldn't afford their books and that OERs were a great remedy, faculty members who participated in these workshops at different institutions were not actually adopting open textbooks after the workshops took place. So we learned that without meaningful engagement with an open textbook, that wouldn't lead to an adoption, and that wouldn't happen often without a financial incentive. But we did not have the funds, so we weren't able to do the workshop until in 2019 in the fall, a new provost came to NEIU and we had a faculty institute day, and the provost met with our library department and for the first time, and the topics of open access and open education resources came up. And during this meeting, he actually committed to finding money for us to support it. And he basically said, if you have a plan, I'll find the money. And he actually did. And not all librarians, I acknowledge, will have a story where we're promised money and then given money. So I assure you, I know how lucky we are and maybe how that unusual that is. So we proceeded to plan for the workshop. We wrote a proposal to the provost and emphasized cost savings to students. So you can see in our proposal, we really highlighted the money that would be saved for students in a theoretical situation if we shifted to an OER. We ended up having 35 faculty applicants for only 20 spots, which we had funding for. We selected the participants who had the potential to have the most impact on campus. So those who taught general education courses with the largest enrollments. And we also tried to account for some diversity within the departments so that they could be representatives and kind of share that message. We planned for a two-hour session in person for April 3rd. And then we all know the governor called the shelter-in-place order for March 21st. So we moved that workshop online. We reduced the time of the workshop from 2 hours to 90 minutes. We got rid of some activities. We got rid of lunch. No need to breathe out our germs. And out of those 20 members, 19 actually were able to attend. And the one who wasn't was unable to log on because of bandwidth issues with family, e-learning, and spouses working. What we tried to do was personalize the workshop by making a video of 4 NEIU students who talked about their experiences with textbook costs. And I'm gonna just share a 1-minute clip from that video. And they all send release forms, so they know that this could happen. So I'm gonna switch. And then can I ask Emily or Dan, if you cannot hear the video, will you just cut me off and I'll just stop it? But hopefully we can, because it's, I think, very nice. All right. So let's go ahead. All right.
I can't hear it, I don't think.
Oh, bummer.
Well,
can I try one more time?
yeah, of course.
Okay. Oh, it's like not even. Hold on.
Yeah. When you do the share, make sure that you are indicating that you want to do it with audio.
Okay.
There's a there should be.
Oh, I share computer sound or
Yep.
optimize screen share. Oh, thank you both so much.
Oh yeah, no, if we can get this going, I'm really interested to see it. So
Oh, thank
selfishly,
you.
I want this to happen.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me know if this works now. All right, I think I'll just give us like a couple more seconds of my selfishly wanting to share this because it's so wonderful.
No, I want to hear it too. We're good. We were running ahead of schedule, so.
I might have to. Okay. I had everything. Okay. Okay. Let's do it. All right. Well, I'm sorry, everybody. I was really hoping.
It's okay. Do you want to post the link to that after your presentation into the chat?
Yeah, sure.
People can check it out there.
Great.
And thanks for your patience. But anyways, part of the video, I wish I could have shared it with you. One of the students actually shared that one of the things that students were skipping were their own medications. So it was just such a powerful experience surveying our students. So I would really recommend anybody who's interested in doing something like this to actually maybe record your students, because one of the faculty members in the workshop really felt like this should be required viewing. So I'm going to keep going. And onto some assessment. I've actually surveyed the group of faculty members who attended the workshop 3 different times, once directly after the workshop, once at the end of the summer session, and once this semester about 2 weeks ago. So the numbers that you see in this chart are based on those who replied, and our response rate was 16 out of the 19 attendees for each of the fall and summer survey. And I calculated the savings based on course enrollments multiplied by the cost of the price of the commercial textbook that was replaced, if there was one. And in the summer, you can see 9 courses had open textbook adoptions from 7 different instructors. And in the fall, it was the same, 9 courses, 7 instructors. But they were actually different instructors, which was kind of interesting. And then for the faculty members who ended up not adopting, I will note that many of them actually just weren't teaching classes for those sessions, in particular the summer session. And then some of the ones who didn't adopt already mentioned that they were doing other things to defray the cost of textbooks, like just using articles. And then some wanted to, but couldn't find an appropriate text. So even the ones that didn't adopt really seemed willing to. And then I want to say something about this savings number that really, this is based on the list price if each of those students had purchased a book. And we know that not all the students are purchasing them, but there's not a firm way to calculate rentals versus how many bought and how many didn't. So it's like upwards these amounts, which I think was really wonderful. And then the pandemic really magnified issues, access issues to textbooks. Students could not use their usual supports like a library reserve copy or borrowing an instructor's copy or purchasing one to share with a classmate. And additionally, textbook publishers did not land on a clear way to help us through this. There were some ebooks available at low cost through sites like RedShelf or VitalSource, but there wasn't a way to get this to extend past spring. So in addition to the promising adoption rates, we got other comments that indicated faculty responsiveness to adopting open education resources. So in a post-workshop survey, we asked a question. Given the current circumstances with shelter-at-home directives, how do you feel about using open education resources? And to distill a couple of those comments, the sentiments were just that OER are more necessary than ever. Many people said this. And then in an instruction survey this spring that we did, as you can see, we really love surveys here. We asked, has teaching online changed your library needs? There were some no's, there were some yeses, and some people said it changed everything. And one comment in particular that focused in on access to course materials, a faculty member said they switched to as many online texts as possible to make it accessible to students. But they had previously put personal copies on reserve for students, and they just didn't know how to manage this problem of access for their students. So again, this comment highlighted to us the textbook problem, and again, the possibilities that OER presents and could help with our students. So in summary, the pandemic really threw us into a moment when many instructors and students were without options for textbook access. And I can't know for sure how many more faculty members would have adopted OERs because of teaching online, but I do believe it set the conditions for higher adoption rates for open textbooks. And I also see this as a continuing moment because how we teach is altered forever, even when we return to face-to-face classes. So I'd just like to conclude by saying that for anybody who's interested in trying a workshop like this at your own institution, and again, I acknowledge that not everybody's going to be given the money. The Carly's OER committee is doing a set of trainings based on the full day workshop that I attended in 2018. And there will be more sessions in the spring, and I think they're really worthwhile. So thank you so much for your time. I know there's so many other things that you could be doing this morning. So I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. As a reminder, Michelle's presentation, her breakout room will be number 6. So if you want to participate in hers, you can put a 6 in front of your name. Okay, our next presenter is Kent Lacombe, and he is the Applied Sciences Librarian / Assistant Professor at the Milner Library at Illinois State University. And the title of Kent's presentation is Fluid Engagement, Applying an Evolving and Responsive Instruction Model During COVID-19. The description says, fall 2020 brought significant challenges and uncertainties to academic life at Illinois State University, ISU. This lightning session will briefly outline some of my evolving efforts at creating flexible and accessible instruction and outreach models while serving as a new tenure-track faculty member for Milner Library at ISU. Kent, welcome, and I'm stopping my screen, and you are welcome to share yours.
Great, thank you, Dan. So again, my name is Kent Lacombe, and my contact information is on here. I'm the liaison for agriculture, environmental sciences, family and consumer sciences, geography, geology, and health sciences here at Illinois State. So I am a new tenure track faculty member, and I moved here from California and arrived in the height of the summer pandemic, and was faced with creating relationships with faculty who by and large were not on campus, A, because it was summer, and B, because of the pandemic. So there were two things working against having contact with faculty. So one of the very first things I had to do coming out of the gate, and there were several new faculty that joined Illinois State at this time, so we were all kind of in the same boat, was how are we going to transform our traditional methods of instruction for this very changed framework. And so I've got a lot of teaching experience in my past, but I've never taught a course entirely online. I've taught hybrid courses where components were online, but never anything where you were using synchronous or asynchronous modules and not having face-to-face contact with students. And then also our library in the fall ended up closing a couple of weeks into the semester due to high COVID rates. So then a further question was, how do we serve these students and adjust these in-course research projects so that they can be more effectively completed in this environment where students may not be able to easily access research materials at the library. So there were a lot of different things going on here. And in the course of this, embraced new technologies, broadened use of technologies I was already familiar with. Many of us had used Zoom in the past, but I've never used Zoom as a primary teaching tool, for every basically course interaction, and then embracing new technology within the existing technologies. So we've got a teaching and learning center on campus and folks that work with instructional technologies, and they've held sessions on how to incorporate additional technologies into things like Zoom or other software programs that can be utilized for the online teaching environment. So thankfully, although there were a very high bar of challenges awaiting us as we arrived at Illinois State, there were also colleagues and systems that were either in place or being put in place that were there to support us as we made this transition. And so I haven't had a huge number of instruction sessions, but I didn't know if I was going to get any coming in, and I have had several, and they've incorporated both synchronous technology and synchronous modules, and then asynchronous. And then in the course of providing both of those, I've also developed modules that contain both a synchronous component within the module and then an asynchronous component in the module as well. And what I mean by that is, for example, for a survey course of about 140 students, I created a teaching module that I utilized when I did my instruction session by going through the various things that were relevant for that course in person. But then the second half of that module actually had a asynchronous component that the students would just, as they were going through the slideshow, it would just start up and it would guide them through a sample search within a database where they could see how to limit search, use different keywords, that sort of thing, and then use our interlibrary loan system if they weren't able to obtain the materials locally. So, you know, there's advantages and disadvantages to both synchronous and asynchronous modules. And then also in the incorporation of these materials or these teaching tools within the online environment, I also worked with faculty to readjust their own projects so that they could better reflect the, you know, the shared reality that we were all in. And like a couple of previous presenters talked about as well, a lot of faculty were just as lost and you know, confused about how to proceed as many of the folks in the library, and many of them did not have, you know, benefit from the infrastructure of the library, where we had colleagues who, some of whom were already doing this in the spring and who were actively creating structures to help support us. And so I worked, you know, as I was learning from my own colleagues and bringing my own skills to the table, I was also sharing those with the faculty that I was working with. And we worked together to adjust their own in-course materials for this either hybrid or completely online, eventually, environment, so that students could complete their research projects without necessarily having to come to the library. So this is one example of that, where students were working on topic areas that would have typically brought us into, or brought them physically into our teaching and learning center. We readjusted this project so that they could complete the course module completely online, but then also, as you can see, we added language, and also during my instruction sessions, I added a significant amount of language, encouraging students to go well beyond the parameters of the session, that we were giving them the barest minimum, and kind of not, without saying it, giving them the indication that if you did the barest minimum, you know, your instructor is going to realize that, you know, you've just done what you can do to get a grade. So we want them to really, you know, it's difficult. For some students, it may be an advantage working on their own, just as it is for some faculty and staff. You know, you may find you're more productive in some areas. I think for many of us, it's not. It's, you know, this is not a typical work environment for me. And I think a lot of students also struggle, you know, when they're at home or in their dorms, and they've got all of these other pressures that are going on to students in their undergraduate and graduate programs. And then they've got this pandemic layered on top of it. So trying to be sensitive to that, make these projects easier for them to complete, but then also encouraging them to, even though they can more perhaps easily access information, that they need to then bulk up the information that they are accessing, and really work at trying to you know, find things that are relevant for the research that they're doing. Now, the other component of a lot of this, in addition to modifying the projects that they were working on, coming up with new projects, and just designing these course modules, you know, as someone new to this kind of teaching environment, was to make them familiar with the library when they could not enter the actual physical space. And so one of the other things that I did in some of my later modules was design almost like little tours into my teaching sessions. So I would open the library page. A lot of these were hot linked within the PowerPoints that I utilized, and they were encouraged to follow along as I was doing my session, and you know, click through the links and find the relevant information on the library site for retrieving materials while the library was closed. The very important COVID-19 page that outlined a lot of different issues that the library was experiencing as we closed down, and then also contained links to further contacts for help that they could turn to, and just other things that they could follow through as they were looking at the library site online and experiencing our resources virtually as opposed to in person. Now, while the building was closed, we did also accept student appointments for research, but a lot of those appointments typically were for access for study spaces and you know, basic study area requests, which we weren't honoring. Those could be handled by different campus labs. So the requests for actual research materials and whatnot, I think, had gone down substantially. So trying to get students to understand that if we're in a similar model in the spring, that we are here to retrieve materials if they really need them, and not at the last minute before their project is due, that that is a service that we're actively providing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the database searches in particular, with all of this new information coming in, and the importance of students being able to complete their projects and understand the parameters of their projects during COVID, that, database walkthroughs and stuff, I was trying to automate that technology as much as possible. I've did reviews a little bit before starting a lot of this and trying to adapt some of these teaching methodologies to the online environment and various other things to prepare, but really, you don't really know how it's going to go until you start developing modules and until you're in the classroom. And, thankfully, most of these sessions really all the sessions went pretty smooth and the student response was very positive, but, how that translates into student success at the end of the semester and, and their final projects for the courses, that's the real question. And that's something that I want to continue working with faculty with as we go forward and improve the student experience for the fall. So that concludes my presentation, and my contact information is on here if you wish to contact me in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kent. And Kent's breakout room will be number 7. So if you're interested in speaking with Kent more about that, you can put a number 7 in front of your name. Okay, we are moving on to our final presentation, and I really like this one because we're going to hear from public library side of things today, which is great. So Courtney Tedrick is the Community Engagement Department Head at the Wheaton Public Library, and her topic today is DEI programming during a pandemic. Courtney Tedrick, Community Engagement Department Head at Wheaton Public Library, discusses how she worked with community leaders and members to bring DEI programming and conversations about race to the Wheaton community in the wake of George Floyd's murder. I am stopping sharing my screen, and Courtney, you are.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I kind of got off there. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Here. Okay. My name is Courtney Tedrick. I am the Community Engagement Department Head at Wheaton Public Library, and I think I am the only public librarian presenting today. So I'm super excited to be here, and I really hope that those of you at academic libraries can take something away from this presentation. So if you don't know what DEI stands for, it is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's also known as EDI, so equity, diversity, and inclusion. So it just kind of depends on which acronym you see. Like all of the libraries across the country, when the shutdown happened, we went completely virtual for our programming. In my department, a bulk of what we do is adult programming. So we jumped into the Zoom programs right away, like end of March, early April. So we were pretty well into it. And then the death of George Floyd happened. And then all these protests were happening and civil unrest. In my department, there are 3 of us. So we definitely wanted to address that in our programming, but we weren't sure as, 3 white women if we are qualified to do so. So after talking, we decided, if not us, then who? So we started pretty small. My staff member did these TED Talks where she would pick 3 TED Talks dealing with racial equity, racism, bias, and we would invite our patrons on Zoom to meet face to face, and we would play a TED Talk, and then we would discuss it. And unfortunately, only I think 2 or 3 patrons showed up to that one. Thankfully, there was 3 of us in our department there, so we kept the conversation going. And then we did a book discussion on Ibram X. Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. This book discussion was already established, so and my staff member runs it, and she just selected this book. And it was already well established, and we had some extra attendees, so it ended up being a really great discussion. So we were glad that we did that. So then we already partner with the League of Women Voters in programs. They're a wonderful organization if you aren't already partnering with them. So they do living room conversations for us, and then we moved to Zoom. And each month is a different topic. So in August, we did stereotypes, prejudice, and implicit bias. And since these are face-to-face conversations, we offer 2 sessions and we limit it to about 15 people. And both of those sessions filled up very quickly. The huge benefit to partnering with community partners organizations is they market the program to their members and their networks. So you usually get more people. So that went really well. And then we did a couple book discussions on The Hate You Give to some of our already established book groups. So that's a really great book to discuss, great conversation. And then we have the College of DuPage in our community, so we're very fortunate to have them. So we had a sociology professor do a talk on social equity, inequities, and COVID-19. And then we had a really wonderful historian on Chicago history named Clarence Goodman do a talk on Martin Luther King Jr.'s time in Chicago. It's on our YouTube page. I'd highly recommend checking it out. I can share the link afterwards. But so we had that, these two in September. And we, didn't really know where we were going past this point. And this is when a city council member contacted us and said, these programs are great, but we want to keep the conversation going. Can we do more? And she reached out to my director, who passed it on to me. And I immediately said, yes, absolutely. And I'd already talked to a DePaul professor who is a Wheaton resident. We worked together last year on a really great program called American Creed that was through an ALA grant. So she had a specialty in doing some community conversations and said, if you want to do anything in the future, let me know. So I called a meeting on Zoom with our city council member, our professor, my staff member who did the book discussions, and she brought in a Wheaton mom who came to the living room conversations, who started a parents group within our local school district, which is District 200, called DEI 200. So we had this meeting, and that is where our Talking About Race series came about. So this Wheaton mom, she is a consultant for Microsoft, and she said, I did the series of presentations for Microsoft staff, and each topic, it was a different topic about race, and she would do a brief, 20-minute presentation on the background information, the research that any of us can do on these topics, and then did a panel discussion. And I said, absolutely, let's do it for the library. So I picked the soonest time slot each month that was open, because if you look at our calendar, we are doing tons and tons of virtual programs. So our first topic was, should we be colorblind? As white people, especially in the 90s and 2000s, it was considered a good thing to say, oh, well, I'm colorblind, I don't see color. But we learned that no, if you don't see color, then that can lead to racism. So we had this first panel discussion, and it went really, really well. We had our city council member on the panel, the mayor came, and this is all on Zoom. At this point, we had the Zoom webinar function. So we had, I want to say, like 70, 80 people come. And because we partnered with, DEI 200, city council, we were able to share amongst more networks, especially on social media. So it definitely reached more people. So that's going to be kind of a theme in this presentation: partner, partner, partner. So then from our first meeting, it kind of grew, which is a great thing. My little DEI committee, we added more members, the more members we got. And my professor originally, she reached out to a Wheaton College professor, a sociology professor, and they partnered for the Race in Illinois lecture. So she specialized in research on the southern counties of Illinois and how Illinois remained a free state. So she did that presentation on her own through the Illinois Humanities Rhodes Scholar program. And then her and the Wheaton College professor did the Race in Illinois. And he focused on the northern suburbs, sociological statistics with race, including Wheaton post-World War II, and why people live where they live. So we did that. And then from there, we really had a natural partnership. We already had a strong partnership with the Wheaton Chamber of Commerce because we do a lot of business programs, and we are strong partners with them, the Downtown Wheaton Association. So this panel came about very naturally. So those partners already knew these business owners. So we wanted to have business owners of color share their experiences. And we had a moderator that already the Downtown Wheaton Association worked with before. So we did that, which went really well. And again, with those partner organizations, we really were able to spread the word very last minute too. We've been promoting our programs like 2 weeks prior, but in some of these cases, we were only able to get the social media info out like a week and a half out, and we were able to spread the word that way. So, and I want to emphasize, you know, I'm not an expert on DEI, and these programs, they're not a solution to the problem, they're a conversation. And the more conversation you have with your community, that's how slowly but surely change can happen. And if you're not familiar with Wheaton, it is mostly white. It's pretty conservative, but we are progressing, becoming a little more progressive. Wheaton had its first Pride Week ever this past summer, so that was pretty huge. So we continued with our Talking About Race series. November, we did Be Open to a Discussion which focused on white privilege, white fragility. We decided not to call it white fragility or white privilege in the title, which we kind of went back and forth on, and it probably was a good thing that we didn't. And our latest one was last week, Systemic Racism, which was amazing. The recording should be out soon if you want to take a look. But, you know, we did get a couple complaints, people not convinced that systemic racism even exists. So you do have to kind of be prepared for that. And our panelists ranged on their level of expertise. Some are subject matter experts, and then some are just people of color within our community just sharing their experiences. And then we also had educators, and so different people. Okay, sorry, I'm reading the chat here. So some advice, and we're having our last one on being anti-racist next month. So really excited about that. And then we're gonna kind of see where else we can go with this. But my advice, if you want to do some of these kinds of programs for your library, is start small. You know, don't think you need to do this huge panel right off the bat, because it can be a little daunting. So a lot of libraries did a book list over the summer. I know we did, that was one of the first things we did. So if you haven't done that already, definitely do it. There's so many great titles out there. If your library is open, you can do a book display. Black History Month is coming up in February. That's a really great time to do that. Or do just a book discussion. If you already have an existing book club, you can pick any one of those great titles, or you can start a new book discussion group on social justice issues. If you're a children's librarian or you're close with your children's department, you can do a story time, or you can do a history lecture. And I wanted to say, if you have a budget, definitely pay your speakers and your panelists, even if it's a really low amount, just to thank them for their time. And, you know, especially if you're having people of color educate your white community, it's definitely important to compensate them for their time. So I know my budget was slashed, but I was able to offer them all just a really small honorarium, which most of them declined, but I think they were appreciative of the offer. Definitely get support, you know, talk to your manager, your director, your board of trustees, because you want their support. You want to make sure that they are aware that you want to do this, and that they're on board and that they support you, because you need to prepare for the worst. Not everyone in your community might be ready for these discussions, like I said. So when we got these couple complaints, I wasn't really too concerned, because we had the full support of my director, our board, and pretty much the city, because we had our city manager attend, the chief of police, the mayor, city council. So it really took the stress off. So definitely get support. And of course, partner. You know, the more partnering organizations you can include, you know, the farther your reach will be. Let's see here. Okay, so how do you get started, and who do you reach out to within your community? Definitely city.
Sorry to cut you off. I don't know if you could see my time cards, but we only have a minute left. So just giving you a heads up.
Oh, okay. Do you need me to stop?
You can take another minute. We're okay. We have a little overflow time.
Oh, okay. So really quickly, sorry everyone. So just look at this list. And if you're in an academic library, I would say definitely reach out to your professors and your student groups, or if there are protests in your areas, who organize them, and your local NAACP chapter, your League of Women Voters, business owners. So just reach out and make those connections. If nothing happens right away, at least you're making those connections for the future. And that's all I have. Sorry that I went over.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Like I said, we had a little overflow time built in, so everyone else was under. So yeah, it was it worked out. Thank you so much. And it was
Thank
really valuable
you.
information. So we
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Thanks, Courtney. Yeah. Okay. So just a reminder, Courtney is going to be breakout room 8. So if you want to attend a breakout with Courtney, make sure that you're putting 8 in front of your name. Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen again just to remind you a little bit of what we are doing here. So we are going to do one last breakout section. And a reminder, hover over your name in the participant list, click more. It'll give you the option to say rename. You can rename and then put a number in front. And you're going to do 5 through 8 this time. And I've put a list on here. Thank you again to the moderators, the folks whose names are listed in red here. They will be helping out with the conversations in these rooms. But you have 5 through 8 to choose from. We're going to give you a little bit of time here to take a break. So we're going to come back, I believe, at 11:38. Is that right, Emily?
Yep. 11:38.
Okay. So before you go on your break, change your name and choose your breakout section, please, please, please. And then we'll be back here at 10:38, and you'll go off to your breakout rooms. You'll discuss with your fellow attendees, and then we'll come back and do some quick wrap up and conclusion. Okay, well, it looks like a lot of us are coming back from the breakout rooms. We hope you enjoyed those breakout rooms and getting a chance to connect with your peers and the presenters around topics that are of interest to you. I just want to say for myself, I have really enjoyed this event. It's been great to be able to connect with people. This has been I think this is a fantastic venue for this kind of thing. Again, we're all disappointed that we can't be doing this in person with y'all. But I want to say a couple thanks. First of all, to the ICRL Conference and Continuing Education Committee. Thank you so much for putting this together. And especially to Emily and to Sue, who I think took a big part in organizing everything. Thank you so much to Cindy Robinson from ILA for being the person behind the scenes doing all the work. I do want to say that this event is being recorded, and it will be available from the IACRL website. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Emily, who will take us home here. Emily?
Yes, again, echoing what Dan said, thank you so much to everyone who worked so hard to put this event together, and to our wonderful presenters for sharing your expertise and the activities and things you've been working on. It was really inspiring to hear everything that you all have managed to do during the worst time in most of our lives, probably. So kudos to you for your excellent work, and thank you for sharing it with all of us and inspiring us. I did want to make a few quick plugs before we wrap up of some upcoming IACRL things. First of all, you may have seen an email came out recently from past President Michelle Nielsen-Ott about nominations for the IACRL Executive Board election, which is coming up next April. We are starting to think about who we want to nominate for executive board positions. So if you have any ideas, or if you would like to nominate someone that you know, please feel free to submit a nomination. I'm putting the link for that in the chat. Secondly, we are still accepting applications for IACRL committee members. So that's a little lower stakes. Oh, thank you, Michelle. Self-nominations also welcome for executive board nominations. A little lower stakes is the committee members. So if you want to be on a committee like Conference and Continuing Ed that puts these types of events together, or communications, which does social media and the newsletter, there are a lot of different options. I'm going to put the Google Doc in the chat as well. So if you're interested in getting more involved with IACRL, everyone at IACRL is awesome, uniformly across the board, great people, wonderful to work with. So please consider that. We literally could not do what we do without our committee members who keep things going behind the scenes. So thank you so much for everyone who is a committee member, and please feel free to consider joining us. And then finally, our next event for ICRL is the Journal Club, which is going to be held by our very own president, Sue Franzen is hosting. That is next week, the 17th? God, what is happening with this time soup we all live in? It's like very slow and very fast all at the same time. So putting a link to register in there, Sue is going to be leading a discussion on a journal article called A Scoping Review of Mentoring Programs for Academic Librarians. Sounds very interesting. I will probably read it the morning of, let's be real, but can't wait to get into that and join you for the Journal Club on the 17th, which is somehow next week. So I think that's it for me. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It was really lovely to get together, and fingers crossed that sometime in 2021 we can do this in person. That would be cool. All right, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.